Well, hello everyone. I'm Dalton. I'm based out of Melbourne, Australia. It's currently 11 p.m. on a Friday night. I'd much prefer to be outside as we've just come out of a very long lockdown. Oh, I've lost Anna. Yeah, my background is in graphic design and visual design. I've done a lot of strategy work for big corporates. And I sort of teach occasionally between a few local universities around here. But yeah, my interest lies around multilingual design and how to start designing for those sort of multilingual cultures. And I spent quite a bit of time in Korea and Japan sort of working for a few studios over there. I'll just wait for Anna to rejoin.
Yeah, I'm going to say hi too. So my name is Anna and I'm based in New York, and I'm a graphic designer and type designer. And I met Dalton a year ago at ATypI last year in Tokyo. And we've been working together since then.
Yeah. So a fun little project that we've been working together on is the typeface, which this entire presentation is typeset in. We won't call the name just yet, but you know, we look forward to
much progress, but we're just trying to get out a little preview.
Yeah, you know, it covers multiple scripts, and it's currently sitting at around 10,000 glyphs across 10 different weights, and this will probably extend to about 100,000 glyphs once we kind of add the other scripts that we've got intended within the next sort of 6 months. So it's a lovely little project, and we're kind of glad to share a little bit of it right now with you guys at ATypI. Cool. Yeah. Is everyone ready to dive into the presentation? I'm assuming so.
Yeah, I think we might as well jump in.
Okay. So today we're presenting Update 0, the very first update of many to come. This is Standards for a Global Future. Essentially a design etymology around how we can start thinking about a sort of a global future within design. We've got a couple of opening notes, which I'll go through very quickly, and then I'll hand over to Anna. The first being, when we refer to design, we are referring to the typographic community, all the disciplines within that, and all the subset disciplines that sort of help us service that community. We just wanted to simplify it and make sure that we're not trying to sound too focused or I guess being exclusionary of certain disciplines within the typographic community. Secondly, we've got principles, which we just we really want to make sure that we're referencing those unspoken design rules or conventions and methodologies that sort of form a foundational baseline for our community and our industry as a whole. So Anna will take us through the first section of the presentation. I will then step back in through the middle, and then Anna will sort of finish up on our sort of the ending notes. Yeah, looking forward to hearing this.
Yep, let's start. So historically, type design has always been a really difficult, tedious, and demanding industry. And most importantly, really time-consuming. To even produce a single letter, we needed a laughable amount of tools and knowledge and skills and dedication and time. Whereas now, we live in a reality where all you need to design a typeface is just a few hours of time, and it's really accessible now because the tools are on everyone's computers, and all you really need is just access to a computer and a mouse and just some very basic knowledge, which is why the amount of typefaces that have been released every year has grown exponentially. And we just keep seeing new designs being released constantly. And because of that, our media space is becoming extremely oversaturated and just frankly cluttered. And it's getting harder and harder to navigate. So pretty much the same thing is happening in the realm of knowledge and education around type design. And while we see a lot of great and trustworthy and reliable resources out there, such as materials that foundries publish or resources that we get from established designers, institutions, or conferences that have been around for decades. But as the industry continues to grow, so does the quantity of conflicting information, ideas, and directions. And once again, we just end up in a really cluttered space that is hard to navigate. And even for people established in the industry, it's really hard. And imagine being a junior designer who's just starting out. How do you know what's good and what's not good? And how do you know what to look for? And how to navigate this complex space that we find ourselves in? So that issue is actually acknowledged, and we see the industry paying attention to that issue, and we see our community trying to address it and kind of try to bring some structure and order into the clutter that we currently have. And hence we see a lot of publications and great resources that try to index and document and structurize the current trends in design. So yeah, we see the catalogs, the indexing editions. We also have competitions that have been running every year for a very long time, and annuals. And that is all really helpful to find our way in this complex society of the final product. And it helps both designers who try to come up with new ideas and the clients who get the final product. But for some reason, we're completely lacking anything like that in the realm of knowledge and education around the industry. And hence, we lack a point of view on what principles are behind typography today. And I keep mentioning knowledge around typography and knowledge in the industry. And what I mean by that, it's not exclusively the methods or hands-on knowledge, such as tools or drawing or production skills or anything like that, which is also really important. But I'm also speaking here about community mindset and community dialogue. For some reason, we're completely lacking, basically nobody is really sharing different perspective and context of working in different countries. So right now, we don't really have a clear perception of how the industry functions across the globe. So it would be great if we were able to share insights of how the industry works locally. For instance, standards of the rates, financial, legal, and just insight on client relationships and any peculiarities of how the community functions locally. So how do we do that? How do we encourage global dialogue? And how do we move towards a more clear, transparent, and accessible picture of our current type industry? And how do we unify our community for a global future? And I'm going to hand it over to Dalton to tell us more about it.
Thanks, Anna. Yeah, so as Anna was saying, we've really moved into this world of kind of an oversaturated media channel, and there's so many avenues to kind of get your information from. Is, how do we start to unify some of this information for our community? So we'd like to introduce Update.Design, which is a central platform to sort of collect, synthesize, and share knowledge. To build an up-to-date resources for designers and for no matter their culture or country. We want this to be a really global thing, but ultimately to provide a better picture of design around the world. This is due to our increasingly interconnected and sort of digitized world, where we face a crossroad of choice between our direction, where we are going, and who we can actually interact with is far broader than it was even just 10 years ago. As we are presenting right now, across multiple time zones, is a great example of this sort of new world of interconnected possibilities. Secondly, from this, we think that a unified approach would help, because we are facing a really challenging era full of technological and social hurdles. This being a privatization of higher education, the use of Instagram as a business tool now, and just like every single year, there seems to be a new avenue such as TikTok or Snapchat that just sort of pops up and sort of takes another chunk out of the sort of the reliability and accountability of higher education and educational tools. Not to say that these things are disadvantageous or sort of negative to the community, but it just adds an extra element and an extra layer that doesn't help us kind of have a strong point of view on what our industry can become. So having a unified approach, as I was saying, to design discourse helps us elevate local principles. It can help us invite more diversity onto the vocal stage, and can help us redefine the type community as a global one that is unbound by historical definitions and assumptions. How do we start to reimagine, our job descriptions and our sort of way of thinking around defining our potential scope of work with clients? This also opens up a really exciting avenue for education in terms of developing new disciplines, ones that align to multilingual design. Imagine if you didn't get taught, Latin type design to begin with, but actually what you really wanted to learn was Hanzai script or Hangul in Korea, and then built your knowledge around other languages through that. I think the diversity that creates would be incredible going forward, especially in a very global world. So in terms of where we see Update.Design becoming is a place to map the past, understand the present, and really sort of start to discuss that future. We really want to think about making sure that we capture where we are today, where we have been, and then start to discuss and have a proper dialogue around where we are going in the future. It's just to make sure that we're not leaving any group behind, we're not leaving any discipline behind, and we're capturing every sort of single detail and making sure that everyone's got an equitable platform to kind of sit on, much like ATypI is doing, with the all over presentations and sort of conference that we are currently presenting at. It's a way of connecting the community together and making sure that we are having a dialogue that is not a benefit to any sort of single organization, but sort of contributes to the whole community. But to be really clear, it's not another magazine. It's not It's Nice That or Idea magazine or your sort of design archives that kind of just take a design and say this is a really beautiful outcome, but then not really discuss where that outcome has come from and what sort of influences have created this outcome in the design world. And essentially Update.Design is all of the above. It's a central location to connect groups, share knowledge, and really discuss design as a community, one that is really global, and it's a way to connect groups between different countries. So we don't really want to reinvent the wheel. We want to basically say, if you are studying, a specific culture in Canada, we want to connect you with a very similar group that's also researching indigenous cultures or similar in South America or Taiwan or, it can be anywhere in the world, but just making sure that, if you are working on something similar and you want to sort of find, share, and become, a little bit sharper in your approach, you've got a singular place to go to, and you don't have to spend hours or weeks trying to find your network and your connection to kind of find all these different pieces. So basically, Update.Design is a central place to kind of gather, and we're going to do this through 3 core methods of communication. That start with a meeting place and end in an open space. This first meeting place being a website, the main location to connect, discuss, and search for information. A granular level of the community and the resources available for viewing. It's where you kind of are able to drill down and find that sort of singular piece of knowledge, but also find the groups that you're wanting to connect to. Secondly is a publication that forms a summary of content, views, and perspectives by the community. So how do we start to collate all this information into a succinct and really coherent sort of vision of a region, but also give like a really clear snapshot of like, that was this year in this region, and this is where our sort of knowledge and idea of design was in that time period. So in a way, very much like an Oxford Dictionary approach, where over time we are able to track, the changes in our maturity in understanding specific principles and ideas and sort of design methods and philosophies within design behind that. Finally, the third format of communication revolves around a traveling exhibition that provides a space for exploration, failure, and sort of experimentation. And this is around forming a really closer relationship with the general public. And how do we start to expand their view and their perspectives on the type design community and the design community as a whole? We keep running into these sort of problems with, around licensing and understanding that, it does take us designers sometimes years to kind of produce these very well-crafted design outcomes that for someone, using Word puts very little thought into what typeface they use, unless it's the default in Microsoft or Apple. And so these exhibition spaces are really a place to kind of experiment and show where the design community, the type community in that sense, can sort of really add value and sort of create a really interesting dialogue between public and industry. So how do we deliver this platform and framework? Oh, sorry, I'm skipping ahead. So all of these platforms are codified by region and country, essentially our updates. We want to make sure that it's perpetual and never ending. So if you want to search up update 18 and compare that to update 118, you can. And you'll be able to find each country by a specified country code. So in a way, much like your computer software is updated, you will be able to find all those sort of update notes over time. But most importantly, it all begins at a scriptural roots. The entire structure of content is built from these roots of language, and it groups together similar cultures, meaning we can really map sections of the world in bite-sized pieces rather than trying to map everything at once. And it also means that we can connect groups that are like-minded or researching very similar ideas in a way that makes sense, rather than trying to focus on a specific country or a specific region at any given time. So as I said before, as I was jumping ahead, how do we deliver this platform and framework? Firstly, through local partners that are commercially trading and engaging in a client market. This may be local or international, but they are there to provide a compass and a map to sort of those local industries that help us connect everyone together and can find different designers, different individuals, and sort of be like a leading voice in their own homegrown market. They also provide expertise in production, such as printing and technical support, and may be able to advise on, very specific scripts or sort of languages that are not very common or aren't part of the education network yet, which Update.Design wants to address. Secondly, we want researchers to have an incredibly deep, rich, and granular knowledge of specific topics to help us provide direction and focus, and also just make sure that what we are documenting and cataloging is factually correct and also just in the right general direction of where the sort of the cataloging and archiving of information should go. They can also provide peer review support and ensure an equitable platform for all voices to be heard, trying to reduce as much bias as possible, and just making sure that there's not a single voice that is louder than any other voice on the community platform. Lastly, we want collaborators to help shape the future and vision of Update.Design. We want them to mold the platform in a way that becomes even more global in approach, in a voice, and in sort of the way that it should be. It shouldn't come from a select group of people that design a platform for the rest of the industry. We want the industry to create this platform for themselves. And essentially, we just want to provide the scaffolding for everyone to kind of start. And so we look towards that. There's so much more that I can share with Update.Design, but I really want Anna to kind of help illuminate what the next steps are. So I'm going to hand it over to Anna, who's going to walk through those next steps.
And hello again. Now I'm going to tell you about the next steps. So the first next step is a short-term next step, and we're looking at the next 1 to 2 years from now. In that time, we're hoping to start establishing the local chapters and building the resource library, and ultimately to publish the first iteration of Update.Design, which would include the website, the publication, and the exhibition. Second step would be the next 5 to 10 years. And by then, we're hoping to open the platform to other design disciplines, such as architecture, photography, industrial design, interior design, and all sorts of visual creative disciplines. Ultimately, we're hoping to gain the UN support, since it's a global project, and develop national policies around the industry. The final step is the next 10 to 50 years from now. And the ultimate goal of this entire platform is to integrate into a global educational network. And we're really hoping that we will be able to redefine design history from a non-colonial perspective, and eventually to expand to other disciplines that are around creative disciplines, such as marketing, for instance. So what do we need to get started? First of all, we're looking for chapter leaders globally across different countries. We would also need volunteers that will help us build, maintain, and manage, and just help with the administrational part of the platform. And if anyone is interested or has any questions, here's how to reach us. And I'm going to hand it over to Dalton again.
Yeah, thanks, Anna. So currently we don't have a website just to go off, so please do just email us at info@update.design. We will check this daily. But really, just a quick thank you to our supporters. It's sort of taken us quite a number of months and almost a couple of years to kind of get to this point where we've got a very sharp and platform that we can start to develop into something a little bit grander and better. So again, thank you to them for their feedback and assistance to date. It's been very valuable and much appreciated. And thank you to ATypI for hosting us on a lovely Friday morning, afternoon, and evening. So yeah, we look forward to sharing Update 1 with you all in 2021, hopefully in person in Paris. Any other remarks, Anna?
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions, just ask us.
Yeah.
We still have time.
Yeah, hello again. Thank you so much for the presentation. Very interesting topic, and I was really glad to be present as a moderator here. Let's look at the chat. Yeah, okay, so the participants, of course, you can feel free to ask any questions. You can use either the general room or also the Q&A section. Even though the participants cannot see the questions from the Q&A, I'm going to read them out aloud, and we're going to have a discussion. And I guess I will not handle it without my glasses, so let me. Okay, so Xenia has a question. So how far are you in the platform development, and what's the bare minimum you need to get it started and online? And do you already have it?
Great question. So the platform is still at its very infancy. We don't have a website, as I just mentioned at the end there. The bare minimum for us to get started is to get a couple of developers involved and start really building it out. We've got a seed library that we're sort of working with. I won't mention who it is, but we do have quite a large resource to begin working. I hope that answers that question well enough.
Somebody, the link which was shared in the chat, unfortunately, doesn't work. Yeah, so how do you why do I see the question from Anna Andreeva? Okay, that's fun. Okay, but I will read the question aloud anyway. So how do you expect to track changes over the longer periods of time, and how do I search for older information?
So in terms of tracking information over time, think of it from an Oxford Dictionary kind of point of view. How do you start to kind of think about design in a way where you might have a piece of information in say 1990, and a new research comes out in 2010, and so you can update it through that. Yeah.
Okay, and excuse me, I see now this additional letter N. Yeah, I was just a little bit confused.
There's a couple of N's.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind. The one who's sitting here with the turn-on camera, she's so cute, so I don't mind the second one. I can clone you. Okay, so we have also a question from Dave. So what will the licensing be? One or more Creative Commons licenses?
Great question, Dave. I'm not sure at this point because I'm connecting other groups and other researchers to this. It's really up to them on what level of common licensing that they want to share with the community. I don't think it's... not sure if it's morally or ethically correct to kind of dictate what researchers want to share, and if we do sort of implement that kind of strategy or policy within the platform, then it will sort of be up to the researchers on how much they want to share and willing to give it to that. Great question, Dave.
Yes, thank you, Dave. So Corey Rockcliffe also asks, are there countries where are you already have chapters active?
Basically the US and Australia. It's it's very much in its infancy. This is the first time that we sort of presented it publicly. So we do have a couple of studios involved, but it's very much, we're kind of just asking everyone to join in and sort of get involved and start to shape it in a way that they want to start to use it and see where they can kind of take it.
Thank you. And yeah, the next question is from Laura. She's very grateful for the presentation. And so I think this platform could be great, could be a great pedagogical resource. Have you any specific ideas on how Update.Design can be used in classroom? Yeah, great question. As a student, I'm also really interested in that.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. Brilliant question. And this is something that I am actually currently working on. I can't illuminate too much because it is a commercial application, but we do want to integrate this into every sort of educational system around the world, and we don't want it to be locked off to just masters or PhD students. We want everyone at a tertiary level to have access to it, and even potentially a secondary level, so your high school or middle school, depending on which country you're in. We really want people to have access to this from the very beginning. Because we want a very central place of knowledge around design that's not skewed towards having either a lot of books behind you or access to the internet. It should be kind of a central source of information that is cross-checked and peer-reviewed continuously, and to make sure that it's not leaking or sort of opinionated in that sense.
Thank you for the answer. Yeah, that really could change a lot of a lot of things in the way people are starting their journey in the graphic design, because still I think in some regions this sphere is kind of new, taking into consideration some Eastern Europe regions or some Slavic countries, and it's not that developed, and most of the people, in order to get the access to the good level of education in the sphere, they need to learn another language and go to another country.
Yes. Yeah. So my view on it, and being from a very multilingual part of the world, I can't really speak for Anna, but Anna does also speak Russian. So
nice.
we're quite multilingual in that respect, but we do see the world in a sense that it is very skewed towards westernized Latin and Western history within graphic design. And we think that there's a lot more sort of depth and knowledge that isn't really being shared. And it sort of stifles a bit of growth in those sort of less fortunate countries in this sort of time. And we just want to make a platform that's more equitable and sort of gives a clearer voice to the other groups that haven't had a chance in design history to kind of be seen.
Yeah, true. It's fun for me to observe the differences because, for example, my sister, the older one, she's also a graphic designer, but she's 9 years older, and like I'm studying the same field right now, and she like when she can observe the way my lectures are going, and when she just, I don't know, tweaks a little bit to my program, she was like, "Wow, I wish I had something like that when I was studying." So yeah, it's developing pretty fast, and also developing such platforms will really make a huge difference.
Yeah, and you know, we want this to last beyond our lifetime. Like we don't want it to be something that we own going forward. It's very much again, like that Oxford Dictionary reference. It's just got to outlive and really be a repository of knowledge that is continuously updated. You know, and starting to connect those other disciplines and starting to cross-pollinate those sort of ideas and philosophies within design. And again, thank you, Laura. That's, please join in, send us an email, get involved.
Yeah, thank you everyone for the questions. They're really good.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm also going to follow the link and, I don't know, find out a little bit more about the volunteering, because it's basically what I'm doing right now. And I definitely wouldn't mind to participate in another project and to make a little bit input into the field.
Yeah, so again, just everyone, it's, we don't have a website currently up. We're just currently trying to get the name servers and servers aligned, a little bit tricky, but do send us an email at info@Update.Design. That is working, and we will answer that within a day.
Okay, and we also would like to clarify, so are you envisioning this as primary and English language resource, or will it be multilingual?
Absolutely multilingual. Great question, Corey. It's English for the moment because that's my primary language and Anna's primary language. But we need people that can speak other languages to kind of help translate or sort of build it in their vision, you know, for their local communities. And that's the idea around the local chapters, is they can sort of take ownership of their country or region, you know, and add the languages that are required. But absolutely has to be multilingual going forward.
I also wonder, like, this is a really great global project, and I wonder what was like the origin point. I mean, probably you might have some inspiration from, I don't know, collaboration with some people from the other part of the world, and you were really inspired by this experience, and you wanted to bring it to the next level, because like now we are practicing a lot, working together with people who are from the completely different time zones and from the completely different cultures. And I think that it still has a lot of problems, and many people are complaining about the some sort of disadvantages of such virtual collaborations. And there is really a lot of things to fix here, but maybe you had some, I don't know, great experience and you can share something.
Yeah, Anna, do you want to talk to this one?
So wait, is that the question about how, like, why we felt the need for it ourselves?
Yeah. Like, what was the main inspiration for you, and maybe you had some cool experience of multicultural and collaborations.
Yeah, I feel like it's mostly coming from our experience, actually, because especially working on the typeface, there's so many resources that you want to understand when you start working on multilingual scripts, like the theatrics, the accent, and just the letter shapes. So you have to read through a lot of local resources to get to that, but it's almost like they're completely inaccessible. They usually in a different language and just like scattered over internet, and again, it's just really hard to find. So like we actually felt the need for something like that while working on typeface.
Okay, Patra was also wondering if everything will be bilingual.
Yeah, in a way it will be, but it will be multilingual because there will be not just one or two, but as many as possible.
As many as we can cover, yeah.
Yeah. You know, and we would love people to be able to kind of start writing it in their language and sharing it with their sort of local communities. So do join us and be a local community leader in that sense.
Okay, and Laura has a question. Have you seen the People's Graphic Design Archive? Your work reminded her about that.
It sounds familiar, but I can't visualize it this late in the evening. So
okay, maybe you can share the link. Yeah. Okay, maybe you can share the link in the chat, Laura.
Yeah.
Let's see what's. Okay, here it is. Huh. Okay, I think we'll check it a little later. And also, Maria writes, so the content collaboration is it's not similar to a Wikipedia edition backend, or you're focusing it as much a curated project?
More the former, less the latter. So very much a Wikipedia for the website. But obviously there needs to be curation for the publication. Because it is a summary of information, there needs to be some editing and curation of content to kind of form a very sufficient and succinct kind of point of view on that update. You know, how many of the years that needs to be, but a bit of both. But yeah, very much a Wikipedia in the front, and then a curation at the sort of secondary phase. Great question, Maria.
Yes, thank you. Any more questions? Any more comments? Okay, so Dave wonders, have you looked at version control system like G for collaboration plus control?
No, we have not. We haven't got to that detail yet. We're still very much thinking about sort of how do we actually run the organization and what's the governing structure and how do we start to really make sure that we are connecting all these chapters together and that it is a unified community and not just local communities trying to take over a single platform. But it will certainly be something we look into once we start developing the website. Would love to hear your expertise on that, Dave. So do get in touch.
Thank you, Dave. Oh yeah, by the way, maybe I like just slightly missed that part. How long have you been working on the project for now?
So I've been working on Update.Design for 2 years. It formed part of my PhD proposal, which the university didn't want to fund, and so I just sort of took it and said this is too important not to do. And Anna joined in about 10 to 11 months ago after meeting at ATypI in Japan last year. So it's been a long journey, but for me it started out all the way back in Korea when I was working at a couple of studios there and realizing that there's sort of no dialogue or sort of discussion around how do we start designing in English and say Korean, which are two very different writing systems, yet they use the identical design philosophies, which just blew my mind. That we've sort of boxed and created this system in Korea that's defined on Western principles. I think it's really unfortunate to lose such a strong cultural heritage in that sense.
Yeah, sort of. Like, I think some tendencies in many Asian countries, they are, I don't know, somewhere in between of following the traditions, because the like traditional part in the Asian countries is really strong, but in the same time they are looking a lot at the Western and like European parts, and it really influences, I guess, a lot.
Yeah. You know, if you take, for example, the way the Japanese still typeset their magazines, which is vertically and right to left, compare that to the way the Chinese and even the Koreans now typeset all of their publications, which is left to right, top down, very much like Latin. And that's just due to the typewriter back in the 1930s. And the Japanese were stubborn and said, no, we will not use an American typewriter. We will create our own so we don't lose our typesetting system. And so we've created a world where we're forcing all these sort of design principles that doesn't actually fit their sort of design philosophies locally.
Once I was trying to learn how to read Korean, and I actually didn't even manage to. It turned out that Korean alphabet is like not that hard to read. Of course, I couldn't understand a single word, but still it was fun. Like, you can spend one day and just, I don't know, then to call your friends and to show off a little bit, hey, I've learned how to read Korean.
Yeah, it's a fantastic language to learn, but it is very tricky once you start learning the vocabulary and more words, as I've learnt.
So how many languages do you speak? Russian, English, maybe something else?
Yeah, Russian and English. And Dalton knows some Korean.
Okay.
Yeah, I speak Korean, and I know a bit of Dutch as well.
Didn't know that.
You know. Are there any other questions?
Yeah, let's check. I haven't seen one in the chat. Okay, so maybe if there are no questions, we can slowly start finishing. So in case you still have something to ask, I don't know, a couple of questions, we still have a little bit of time, but if not...
But you can also always reach out to us.
You can also what? Excuse me?
Oh, you can also just always reach out to us.
Yeah, sure. The Hangout room is like always functioning. Yeah, cool projects. Yeah. Also share this one.
Thank you, Sebastian. And
yeah,
Laura?
the Hangout room is, yeah. You can find the link on Slack. If somebody still didn't check it, feel free. There is always some action there.
Okay, well, thank you so much, everyone.
Yes, it was a pleasure to be present in this discussion, to get familiar with such really cool and very important and significant for the graphic designer society community. Yeah. So, yeah. And I wish you all the best in the further sessions. And yeah, see you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Goodbye. And all the, I wish you really all the good luck in developing your project. It's really amazing. So yeah.
Thank you. All right.